From Mexico City and from Reno, Nevada comes today's news. Good evening, everybody. This is Lowell Thomas for CBS News. First, a salute to radio station WAOV, Vincennes, Indiana, celebrating its 35th anniversary. Now the news. Our gross national product for the third quarter of the year up more than 11%, biggest quarterly increase in more than 20 years, says Commerce Secretary Morton, and a solid confirmation of a decisive upswing in our economy, with prospects excellent for continued strong growth in jobs, incomes, profits, as well as for moderation in the rate of inflation. And a new 5-year grain deal between the U.S. and Russia completed in Moscow. The Soviets agreeing to purchase a minimum of 6 million tons, a maximum of 8 million tons of grain a year. Total cost about $1 billion a year, with an escape clause in case of a drop in our production. Also, we to resume negotiations toward a possible U.S. purchase of Russian oil up to 10 million tons a year at favorable prices, presumably lower than the going world rate. And now this message. President Ford today canceled appointments and a trip to Florida, but in spite of a bad cold, he sent Congress a proposal for sweeping changes in the $5 billion food stamp program to increase benefits to the poorest of the poor, but eliminate freeloaders. From the Pentagon, a blast at the House Appropriations Committee for voting to cut defense spending by $9 billion over the next year. Defense Secretary Schlesinger calling the committee cutbacks deep, savage, arbitrary, urging the Senate to restore some $3 billion of the proposed reduction, and saying we can only go so far, knocking holes in the shield, protecting the U.S. and its national interests abroad. Secretary of State Kissinger in Peking is again conferring with Chinese leaders. The talks described as cordial and frank. An earlier air of apparent hostility now seems to have vanished. Chinese Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping saying, "It doesn't matter if we quarrel a bit," said Dr. Kissinger. "It gives the press something to write about." New York's Mayor Beam, again in Washington, pleading for House backing of a bill to save the city. His reception lukewarm. In the Senate, there's a threat of a filibuster to block any Save New York bill. UPI's Helen Thomas says LBJ's first choice as successor in '68 was the then New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller. Miss Thomas in the Ladies' Home Journal calls Pat Nixon the warmest first lady I covered and the one who loved people the most. Jackie Kennedy, something else. She says reporters once sent Jackie a note asking what she planned to feed her new dog. The First Lady replying, reporters. And now for CBS News, this is Lowell Thomas saying, so long until tomorrow.
Thursday, October 23rd, 1975, and now Lowell Thomas.
From Tokyo, from Madrid, and from Denver comes today's news. Good evening, everybody. This is Lowell Thomas for CBS News. Our Secretary of State, Dr. Kissinger, in Tokyo on his way home from Peking, today admitted the U.S. image in China has apparently suffered a partial slump. This as a result of what he calls the series of upheavals we have gone through. He says, however, the basic relationship between the U.S. and China remains sound. His impression of Chairman Mao, a man of powerful intelligence, strong views, and I see no reason, he continued, to doubt that he, Mao, is in charge of events in China. In Spain, is it the end of an era? It could be. Generalissimo Franco suffered a setback today. His doctors report early signs of another coronary insufficiency. The 82-year-old Caudillo's heir apparent, Prince Juan Carlos, is standing by. And now this message. The nation's big four automakers today reported the best mid-month showing in nearly a year and a half. A whopping increase of 37% in new car sales from October 11th through the 20th. Ford sales chief Bennett Bidwell saying there is increasing evidence that the economy is recovering and is flashing a green light for auto sales. The House Ways and Means Committee voted to continue this year's tax cut at about the same level into the new year. The committee rejecting President Ford's request for a simultaneous ceiling on federal spending. Observers saying this will probably lead to another veto fight around the end of the year. In the Senate, a defection. Senate Minority Leader Hugh Scott rejecting the president's proposed food stamp reform bill in favor of a counter-proposal from McGovern of South Dakota and Dole of Kansas. Senator Scott saying the McGovern-Dole bill is a positive step toward reform. The president's plan could lead to undue hardship for millions. An apparent breakthrough in producing an appetizing fish protein powder. Polish scientists developing the first fish protein powder tasting like whatever it's added to rather than like fish. They say it's already being used in so-called fish sausage and can be used with beef and pastry and chocolate, why even ice cream. Sound fishy? And now for CBS News, this is Lowell Thomas saying, so long until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow, so long, Lowell Thomas. CBS in the Delaware Valley, right here in Philadelphia. WCAU, it's 6 minutes after 7 o'clock.
Friday, October 24th, 1975, and now Lowell Thomas covers the world at 7.
From Somalia, from Reykjavik, Iceland, and from Kalamazoo, Michigan, comes today's news. Good evening, everybody. This is Lowell Thomas for CBS News. The UN, 30 years old today. There should have been a celebration. The world body has been much criticized of late. The latest to take it to task, President Ford, strongly condemning a recent UN committee action labeling Zionism a form of racism. Such, said the President, undermines the principles upon which the UN is based, adding that he was speaking out now in keeping with what has been the general principle of the U.S. to take exception to any action that weakens the UN as an effective forum. And now this message. The Senate Banking Committee begins an effort to hammer out a compromise Save New York bill. The White House still opposed. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee was discussing a proposed loan of $20 million to Zaire, this one fully endorsed by the President, and drawing the ire of Republicans and Democrats. Senator Javits of New York saying, it's the height of inconsistency, of callousness. Senator Humphrey of Minnesota, unless there is money for New York, Zaire ain't going to get one damn dime. Generalissimo Franco of Spain apparently staging another comeback today, and then suddenly another coronary. The Generalissimo at last report, resting quietly, his heir, Prince Juan Carlos de Bourbon, in the palace with him. The Turkish ambassador to Austria, machine-gunned to death Wednesday in Austria, and the Turkish ambassador to France meeting the same fate today in Paris. The assassins in each case described as Southern Mediterranean types. The police saying probably the same men. The use of bonded labor in India, supposedly outlawed by federal law 25 years ago, but local officials were looking the other way. In New Delhi today, a presidential order abolishing the bonded labor system to go into immediate effect. Also, cancellation of debts and return of any properties relating thereto. From northern Somalia, the largest planned resettlement program in African history has now been completed. Russian air transports lifting more than 120,000 starving nomads to new homes in southern Somalia. The nomads for centuries living off herds of cattle and goats, roaming the Horn of Africa, and they were in danger of being wiped out by a year-long drought. Now they are to be taught to become farmers and fishermen. A similar, smaller nomad resettlement is underway in neighboring Ethiopia. The women of Iceland today were all out on strike as a part of a battle for equal rights, refusing to work, shutting down factories, stores, businesses, often even their own kitchens. This, says the spokesman for Iceland's Organization of Women, almost every woman in Iceland is now on strike. And now for CBS News, this is Lowell Thomas saying, so long until Monday.
Good evening, I'm Rich Collins, WCAU Radio News 1210, CBS in the Delaware Valley, sitting in tonight for Bill Hart.